The rescue. The war had left the land broken. Smoke rose from shattered buildings, the air was filled with dust, and the sound of battle still echoed in the distance. On a ruined alien world, fire burned in the streets, and frightened families hid in the shadows, praying to survive another day. In the middle of this destruction walked a human soldier. His armor was dented, his weapon heavy in his hands, and his steps slow from exhaustion. He had been separated from his unit after a brutal fight with alien raiders. Now he moved carefully through the ruins, scanning every corner for danger, and then he heard it. A soft cry. It was faint, almost lost in the wind, but clear enough to stop him in his tracks. The soldier froze, listening. Again the sound came. Small, weak, and desperate. He followed it, stepping over broken stone and twisted metal, until he found the source. In the shadow of a collapsed wall, a little girl sat alone. Her clothes were torn, her skin covered in dust, and her large eyes shone with fear. She was not human. Her ears were long, her features sharp, her hair pale like silver. She was one of the alien species that had once fought against humanity. Yet, in that moment, none of it mattered. The soldier lowered his weapon and knelt slowly, keeping his movements gentle. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice calm, though he wasn't sure if she could understand his words. The girl flinched, pressing herself against the wall. Her small hands clutched a broken piece of cloth as if it could protect her. Her lips trembled, but her eyes did not leave his. The soldier removed his helmet, revealing his tired human face. He placed his weapon on the ground and stretched out, his hand, palm open. No threat, only an offer. For a long moment, the girl did not move. The war had taken everything from her, her family, her safety, her trust. But something in the man's eyes was different. She felt no cruelty there, no mockery, only a quiet strength and a promise of safety. Slowly, shakily, she reached out and touched his hand. The soldier smiled, though his heart ached at the sight of her trembling. He lifted her gently into his arms, feeling how light she was, how fragile. She rested her head against his chest, too tired to resist anymore. But danger was never far. From the ruins ahead, the sound of movement came. The soldier raised his head sharply. Shadows shifted. Raiders. Alien warriors, still hunting survivors, armed and ready. They stepped into view, their eyes narrowing at the sight of him carrying the child. One of them hissed with laughter. "A human. And he carries one of ours. How noble, how foolish." The soldier tightened his grip on the girl. He placed her carefully behind a fallen stone slab and raised his weapon. His muscles ached, his body screamed with exhaustion, but he would not abandon her. The raiders charged. The battlefield exploded with fire. Plasma bolts tore through the air, shattering stone and lighting the night. The soldier moved with sharp precision, his shots striking true. One raider fell, then another, but more kept coming. The girl covered her ears, her small body shaking. With every blast, the soldier took hit after hit on his armor, sparks flying, but he stood his ground. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose, and everything left to protect. He fought not for orders, not for victory, but for the life of one small child who had no one else. At last, the last raider fell. Silence returned, broken only by the soldier's heavy breathing. Smoke rose from the ruins, the air thick with the smell of fire and blood. The soldier dropped to one knee, his strength almost gone, but when he turned to the girl, he forced a smile. "You're safe," he whispered. The little girl crawled from behind the stone, her wide eyes filled with tears. She reached for him, clutching his arm with small, trembling hands. For the first time since the war began, she felt hope. He lifted her again, holding her close. Together they walked into the night, leaving behind the ruins of war. Neither of them knew it then, but this single act, the rescue of a lost child, would echo across years, across stars, and across the very heart of the galaxy. For in saving her, the soldier had lit a fire that would one day return, changing everything. Years of silence. The war ended, but scars remained. Entire cities lay in ruins, and across the galaxy, silence covered the graves of countless battles. Humanity had retreated into shadows, hiding its strength, preparing in secret. Many alien worlds believed the humans were gone, extinct, erased by the cruelty of endless war. But far away, on a small alien colony, one little girl never forgot. She had been rescued from fire and death, carried in the arms of a human soldier who fought alone against raiders. That day became a memory burned into her heart. She remembered the weight of his arms, the sound of his voice, the warmth of his smile. Though years passed, the memory did not fade. The girl grew into a young woman, her silver hair long, her features sharp like her people's, but her spirit shaped by something different, something she could never explain. When others spoke of humans as myths, as shadows from a forgotten time, she said nothing. But in her heart she knew the truth. She had seen one. She had been saved by one. Her mother raised her with care, but even she noticed the change in her daughter. At night, the young woman would stare at the stars, whispering to herself. Sometimes she cried softly. Other times she smiled as though remembering something only she understood. "Why do you look to the stars so often?" her mother asked one evening. The young woman answered simply, "Because out there, he is waiting." Her mother did not press further, but she feared what her daughter believed. Humans were ghosts now. Their worlds had gone silent, their fleets were never seen, and yet her daughter's faith was unshaken. Beyond their colony, rumors spread. Traders whispered of missing ships near the Sol system. Scouts vanished without a trace. Strange signals pulsed from the dark, patterns too precise to be nature, too sharp to be ignored. Some said Earth still lived. Others laughed, dismissing it as lies. But the young woman listened carefully. Each whisper, each story, was another piece of proof. Meanwhile, in hidden places far from the eyes of the galaxy, humanity prepared. Beneath, oceans, inside mountains, across the far reaches of the solar system, black warships slept in silence. Soldiers trained endlessly, their armor forged in secret, their unity unbreakable. The galaxy believed humans were gone, but the truth was far more dangerous. They were waiting. Back on the colony, the years passed. The girl became strong, her voice firm, her will sharper than those around her. People began to notice her strange fire, the way she never bowed to fear, the way she carried herself with quiet courage. Some called it stubbornness. She called it humanity. At markets, when people spoke of the Galactic Council mocking Earth, she grew angry. "They do not know," she whispered. "One day they will learn." At night, when the stars burned bright, she told her mother stories of the soldier who saved her. She spoke of his armor, his weapon, his eyes. She described the way he fought alone against many, the way he shielded her, the way he smiled despite his pain. Her mother listened, torn between sorrow and hope. "Why do you hold on to this memory?" her mother asked gently. "Because it was more than a rescue," the young woman replied. "It was a promise. Humanity is not gone. I will find them again." The mother said nothing, but deep down she wondered if fate itself had chosen her daughter for something greater. Years turned into silence, but silence was not empty. It was waiting. Waiting for the moment when memory would meet reality. And then, the signs grew stronger. Traders reported warships seen in shadows, their hulls black as night moving in silence. Messages carried across star systems spoke of human outposts hidden on distant moons. Fear began to ripple through the council chambers, but still many laughed. The young woman did not laugh. She smiled. One day she returned home from the market, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Mother," she whispered, "I heard it again. A human fleet was seen. They say the soldiers wear black armor. They say they fight without fear." Her mother's heart trembled. She looked at her daughter's face and saw no doubt, no hesitation, only belief. That night, the young woman stood under the stars again, She closed her eyes and whispered, "I will find you, the soldier who saved me. I will find you, and when I do, everything will change." Far away, in the darkness of Sol, fleets moved silently. Soldiers trained without rest, and among them, the man who once carried a small alien child into safety still fought, still lived. He did not know it, but the memory of his rescue had never died. The years of silence were ending, and soon, the galaxy would witness a return no one expected. The return. The years of silence ended on a night filled with fire. Above the alien colony, the stars shifted as shadows passed across the sky. Warships, dark and massive, slipped through orbit like predators. Their hulls bore no marks of alien empires, no banners of the Council. They were black, sharp, and silent ships that did not belong to myth. They belonged to Earth. Panic spread through the colony streets as alarms rang. Traders shouted, guards rushed to walls, and children hid in fear. But the young woman with silver hair stood still. Her heart did not beat with terror. It burned with recognition. She whispered, almost in awe, "They're here. Humans." By her side stood her mother, worried but calm. The woman had lived long enough to know what her daughter believed. She had doubted before, but now, as the sky filled with black ships, even she could not deny it. Dropships broke from orbit and roared toward the surface. They landed in clouds of dust and fire, their metal hulls glowing from re-entry. Soldiers stepped out in black armor, their visors shining with cold light, their rifles gleaming with power. They moved in perfect formation, silent and unshaken. Colony guards raised weapons but froze when the soldiers marched past them. The humans did not come to destroy. They came with purpose. At the front of the line walked a commander. His armor bore scars of many battles. His steps carried weight, and though his face was hidden, his presence demanded respect. He looked across, the colony with sharp, careful eyes studying every detail, every corner. And then, her breath caught. The young woman stepped forward, her hands trembling. Beneath that black armor she knew him. Not by his face, not by his voice, but by something deeper. She remembered the way he had carried her through fire, the way he had shielded her, the way he had smiled despite his wounds. Her mother reached for her arm. "Wait," she whispered. "You do not know." But the girl pulled free and ran. Her voice, clear and strong, cut across the silent crowd. "It's you." The commander stopped. His soldiers raised their weapons, ready for threat, but he lifted a hand and they froze. Slowly, he removed his helmet. The years had aged him. His hair darker, his face lined, his eyes carrying the weight of too many wars. But it was him. The same soldier who once knelt in the ruins and offered a hand to a frightened child. The crowd gasped as the young woman stood before him. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice did not break. She pointed at him, then turned to the humans behind him, then to her mother. "This man saved me," she said. When I was a child, when the world burned, he carried me to safety. I never forgot." Her mother stepped forward, her face pale but proud. She bowed her head to the commander. "She has spoken of you all her life. The man who saved her, the man who showed compassion when no one else did. Today she asks something that will shock you all." The colony waited, the air heavy with suspense. The young woman's voice was steady now, filled with the same fire that had burned in her since that day. She looked at her rescuer, at the soldier who had once been her only hope, and said words that froze everyone in silence. "Marry my mother." The commander blinked, stunned. His soldiers shifted uneasily, whispers running through the crowd. The mother covered her mouth, her eyes wide, but she did not deny her daughter's words. The young woman continued, her voice carrying across the gathering. "You saved me, but you also saved her. Without you, I would not have survived. Without me, she would have been lost to grief. We owe you everything. And now I bring her to you, not as a stranger, but as family." Gasps filled the colony square. Soldiers exchanged glances, unsure of what this meant. Some thought it was madness. Others saw something deeper. The commander stared at the girl, at the woman standing behind her, at the people watching. He felt the weight of the past pressing on him, the war, the rescue, the years of silence. He had fought to protect humanity, to protect survival. But here in this moment he saw something greater. A bridge, a bond, a choice that could change everything. His voice was low, but steady. "You ask me to take her as my wife. Why?" The young woman answered with words that would echo across the galaxy. "Because it is more than marriage. It is peace. It is proof that humanity is not a monster, not a ghost. You saved me once. Now save us all, by standing with us, not against us." The silence grew heavier. The council far away would soon hear of this. The galaxy would soon whisper of it. But in that moment, one truth was clear. The return was not just a reunion. It was the beginning of something greater, and the galaxy would never forget it. The truth revealed, the words hung in the air like thunder. "Marry my mother." The crowd was silent, the soldiers frozen. Even the commander, a man who had faced countless battles without fear, felt the weight of the moment press against him. A marriage request, here, in the middle of a colony scarred by war, was more than a personal matter. It was a spark, and sparks in a galaxy full of dry fuel could set everything on fire. The young woman stood tall, her silver hair glowing under the sun, her eyes burning with conviction. Her mother looked at her in shock, torn between love for her child and fear of what such words meant. At last the commander spoke. His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of a man who knew how dangerous even a single word could be. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you bring this before me?" The young woman's reply was simple, but it cut deeper than any blade. "Because it is more than marriage. It is alliance. It is peace. It is proof that humanity can stand with others, not only against them." Whispers filled the colony square. Aliens who had once seen humans as shadows, as myths, now watched with wide eyes. Some saw hope, others saw danger. The mother stepped forward at last, her voice trembling. "Daughter, do you know what you ask? This man is not only human, he is a soldier. His people are feared. To bind him to us is to invite the gaze of the entire galaxy." The young woman turned to her mother. "And is that not what we need? The galaxy mocks humans as weak, yet fears them in whispers. They say humanity is extinct, yet here he stands. If we join with them, no council, no empire, no raiders will ever break us again." The commander looked between them, his heart heavy. He remembered the day he saved the child. How fragile she had been, how small her hand had felt in his. Now she stood strong, her voice shaking worlds. And behind her, her mother's eyes filled with both fear and strength met his. But there was more to this than what stood in front of him. He could see it in their eyes. This was not only a personal request. It was a message, a warning, a chance. Later, inside the human command tent, the truth began to unfold. The young woman and her mother were brought before the commander and his advisors. Maps of stars glowed in the air, warship positions marked in red. Around the table, officers argued in sharp whispers. "This is a trap," one said. "They seek to tie us into their politics." "Or it is desperation," another replied. "A way to survive under our shadow." Either way, a third added, "The council will hear of this. If we accept, they will see it as proof humanity is not only alive, but rising." The commander raised his hand, silencing them. His eyes locked on the woman. "Tell me the truth. Why does your daughter speak of marriage? What do you seek?" The mother bowed her head, her voice calm but heavy with years of pain. "Because our clan is broken. We once served the council, but they abandoned us when raiders came. It was not your kind who destroyed us. It was our own so-called allies. We lost our fathers, our sons, our homes. Only she survived because you saved her. And now, She asks this because she believes the only hope left is with you. The words struck deep. The council, the same arrogant rulers who mocked humanity, had betrayed their own people, and now, that betrayal had opened the door to something greater. The young woman stepped forward again. I do not ask this for myself alone. I ask this for all who still suffer under their pride. You once saved me. Now I ask you to save us all. Not with ships, not with weapons, with unity. The tent was silent. Human soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Some saw wisdom, others saw danger, but none could deny the weight of her words. The commander's eyes narrowed. He had fought wars for survival, for Earth, for his people, but here stood a chance to strike the council not with fire, but with alliance, to show the galaxy that humanity was not a ghost, not a monster, but a force that could build as well as destroy. At last, he spoke. If I accept, the galaxy will tremble. The council will fear us. They will see it not as peace but as a declaration. Are you ready for that? The young woman did not flinch. Yes, let them tremble. Let them fear. For fear is better than silence. And if they wish to fight, they will find humanity standing, not hiding. Her words lit the room with a new kind of fire. Not the fire of war, but the fire of something greater. The soldiers looked at her with respect. The advisors whispered among themselves. The commander remained silent. But inside, he knew the truth. This was more than marriage. It was the beginning of a movement, one that could shake the galaxy itself. Outside, word began to spread. The little girl once rescued by a human had returned with her mother. And now, she had spoken words that carried across the colony like thunder. Marry my mother. It was more than shock. It was prophecy. It was the start of Earth's revenge, not with weapons alone, but with bonds that could not be broken. The truth was revealed, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same again. A new beginning. The camp was quiet. Outside the command tent, soldiers moved in silence, waiting for the decision that could change the galaxy. Inside, the human commander stood before the young woman and her mother. Maps glowed around them, stars, marking battlefields yet to come. But no one spoke of war. The only words that mattered now were the ones that had already been spoken. Marry my mother. The commander studied their faces. The daughter's eyes burned with conviction, her spirit unbroken. The mother's gaze was calmer, heavy with both fear and hope. Around them, human officers stood stiffly, unsure if this was foolishness or destiny. At last, the commander broke the silence. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who had carried the burden of war for too long. If I accept, he said, the galaxy will see more than a marriage. They will see a union between enemies. They will see humanity not as extinct, not as weak, but as a force that shapes alliances. Are you ready for that? The young woman stepped forward. Her voice was clear. Yes, because the council already fears you. Their lies are breaking. Their empires are crumbling. Let them see that we stand with you, not against you. Let them understand humanity is not alone. Her words struck like thunder. The officers shifted uneasily, but in their eyes was respect. They saw courage in her that matched their own. The commander turned to the mother. And you? Do you agree to what your daughter has asked? The woman lowered her head, then raised it slowly. I do, for I have lived long enough to see my people betrayed by the council. We gave them loyalty, and they abandoned us. You saved my child when no one else would. If humanity can fight not only with weapons, but with compassion, then perhaps this path is not madness. Perhaps it is salvation. The commander stood silent for a long moment. His eyes drifted to the maps, the countless stars where war might soon erupt. He thought of Earth, of the silence his people had endured, of the years they had waited in, the shadows. He thought of the girl he had once carried through fire, now standing before him as a woman who could shake worlds with her words. At last, he spoke. Then so be it. Let this union stand. Not as weakness, not as surrender, but as a signal. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not bow. And now, humanity will rise with allies at its side. The tent erupted with whispers. Some gasped in shock, others nodded in agreement. The daughter's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of triumph. Her mother bowed her head deeply, her heart heavy with the weight of what had just been decided. Outside, word spread like wildfire. The story moved from soldier to soldier, from villager to villager, until the entire colony knew. The human commander had accepted. The little girl once saved from ruin had returned, and her words had changed everything. Across the stars, the news traveled. Traders carried it, spies whispered it, the council heard it. In their shining hall, the Galactic Council sat in silence as the message reached them. Their laughter was gone, replaced by cold fear. One ruler hissed, "They are building alliances." Another whispered, "It is worse than fleets, worse than soldiers. They are uniting hearts." The scarred old commander who had once warned them of underestimating humans stood and spoke. "This is the beginning. Humanity was never extinct. Humanity was never weak. Now even those you betrayed stand with them. You called them myth. Now they will become legend." Silence filled the chamber. Not one dared to laugh. Back on Earth's outpost, the commander stood with the woman and her daughter. Soldiers saluted, their fists striking armor in thunderous unity. For them, this was not only a marriage, it was a vow that humanity would never again stand alone. That night, under the stars, the young woman looked at the commander with a quiet smile. "Do you see? The day you saved me was not only a rescue, it was the beginning." The commander nodded, his voice low but firm. "Yes. That day I saved a child. Today, together, we save the future." The stars above seemed brighter, as if the galaxy itself was watching. But now it did not see weakness. It did not see extinction. It saw Earth rising, and with it, a new beginning had dawned, one that would make the entire galaxy tremble.